Ontario Premier Doug Ford is wrapping up a two-day trip to Washington, D.C., where he has been pushing for free trade. Ford says there's mutual interest in achieving a deal.
My message to everyone, we love Americans. We love the U.S., and I know Americans love Canadians. Let's get a deal done. Let's create more jobs, more opportunities, more investment for both sides of the border. No one likes the uncertainty. Every single meeting I've been in, uncertainty, they want stability.
Doug Ford is in Washington just as the Prime Minister confirms the Gordie Howe Bridge between Windsor and Detroit will finally open this week. President Donald Trump had previously vowed to block it, saying the U.S. must be compensated first, even though Canada funded the entire project. For more on this, I'm joined by David Paterson, who is Ontario's representative in Washington, D.C. David Paterson, good to see you again, sir. Thank you for your time today.
Hi, David. Good to see you, too.
So you've been accompanying Premier Ford on many of the meetings he's been having while in the U.S. Capitol. What's the reaction from the political and business leaders on his pitch for Fortress North America and whether they think this trade war could be getting near its conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, very good reaction. And Fortress North America is something that we talked about over a year ago when the Premier first came down with the Council of Federation, and he's updated that document talking about some of the role that the provinces can play in terms of building our overall economy. And I think the general message is like nothing can stop us when we work together. We can be really stronger vis-a-vis China and others when we do that. And basically the message down here was it's time for a deal. And universally, whether it was business people we met with or whether it was in Congress today, that was extremely well received. And in fact, it's been great because, over the last several months, we've been hearing back from members of the administration the phrase, let's build Fortress North America. And so I think we're very aligned on the overall objectives, and there's some hard work ahead for our federal government in terms of trying to reach a deal, and we'll be right behind them to get that done.
But, David Paterson, it's been pretty clear for a while. There's alignment with a lot of members of Congress, a lot of members of Senate, a lot of governors, a lot of mayors, and a lot of business groups. The misalignment's with the White House. And that's the one that really matters right now. I mean, what indications are you getting from everybody you're talking to on Capitol Hill that the people who really matter in this decision-making process are getting close to an alignment with your arguments?
Yeah, I mean, now is the time where our trade negotiators, who are the federal government, are starting to make some much more important progress on dealing with the issues that have been raised by the White House around the USMCA renewal. We have every sense that they're starting to knock off some of those issues and make some progress, even if we haven't seen sort of official announcement of Canadian. I really don't see that as an issue. We've seen Janice Charette and Dominic LeBlanc here regularly in the last while. We have a great new ambassador that's working hard on those issues. And so we are behind them. But one of the groups that really we sometimes forget is so important in trade negotiations is the business community. And so we met with over 20 American companies, major American companies, in the last 2 days. 4 major associations ranging from the automotive sector, all the major automotive sector associations. We met with the defense sector, the farm sector, the aviation sector. And right across the board, everybody agrees it's time for a deal. There's too much investment on the sidelines. And if we can get to a deal, this is the very best way to see jobs, to see lower costs, and more security. And so it's time for a deal.
There has been more of a sense of optimism on the Canadian side since that last trip to Washington, D.C. It would seem to me, based on talking to people on the Advisory Council and people connected with a lot of these things. But then we saw Jameson Greer today saying that, look, Canada still has retaliatory measures in place, retaliatory tariffs on some of the strategic sectors in their 232. And he says that makes trade relations difficult. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Is that just posturing from Mr. Greer, who's not really been the posture person in the administration? He's been sort of a fact-driven guy. What's your sense of where things stand based on what the trade rep has had to say?
Yeah, we have huge respect for Jameson Greer. I've met with him. We'll continue to have our opportunities to speak with him, too, because many of the things that the province controls, such as critical minerals, such as our energy situation, Those things are really important when you're dealing with the country to be able to see where things are going in that direction. There is a list of irritants, trade irritants that the United States has issued for every country that they're dealing with. We've seen that list. We know what's on that list. There's
How much of it is
some issues
Ontario?
are difficult.
How much of it is Ontario? Because there's provincial issues there, right?
Yeah, I'd say almost all of it is Ontario in terms of all the things that affect our economy. The biggest thing, of course, are these 232 tariffs on our side that we've been dealing with for over a year, where we face that, but so do American businesses that actually pay the tariffs. Very interesting to listen to them and to listen to the challenge that they have in terms of addressing the 232 tariffs on aluminum, steel, automotive, and our need to be able to move past that, as the United States has done with about 20 other countries. So we have a lot of templates that are out there. And we can learn from those and move forward. I think sometimes there's a need for, the story of the day with an issue of the day, and we focus on that, and every hammer looks like a nail, etc. But when you step back and you look at that overall set of issues that Canada has to deal with, we're starting to get at those, and our objective is to help with that. But what we really set out to do in our trip down here was to make sure that the businesses that will be very much part of these discussions, that we know exactly what their concerns are, because they're huge investors in Ontario. The auto sector, for example, absolutely enormous. And we are the biggest buyer of automobiles in the world, bar none. We buy twice as many vehicles as Mexico. We buy more vehicles than Mexico and all of South America in Canada, and most of those in Ontario. So that type of discussion is really, really helpful in terms of just reminding the people that Jameson Greer appears before in Congress on a regular basis, very recently, meets one-on-one with the same people as we met in Congress today, senators, members of the House of Representatives, really a welcome reception for Premier Ford, because he came down with a positive message, which is, look, together we're unstoppable. We can outplay China together. We have all the critical minerals, we have all the energy that's needed, and we have a deeply integrated economy. So that's really what we talked about for the last 2 days. And we felt that was good progress, and it's sort of helping the home team here in terms of getting to an outcome.
But you said a lot of the issues that you discussed were things that were in the provincial control, and certainly something that the province does control is what happens on the shelves of your liquor stores. So while you're pitching Fortress North America, what are they saying about Fortress LCBO? Because Kentucky and Tennessee and others are losing a lot of money and losing a lot of workers, and they desperately want to get back into this market.
Sure. Well, just to be clear, what I say is that the tariffs and the economic affect Ontario in just about every sector, because we're the engine of the Canadian economy.
But the liquor ban, as you well know, is one of the irritants that Jameson Greer and others have raised repeatedly, right? That they do not like this. And we've seen Wab Kinew say, no Kuzma, no Boozma. Ontario's sticking with a less rhetorical position than that one. But is this coming up? Is this really getting under the skin of the lawmakers in the United States?
Well, to be honest, it really didn't come up very much in the last 2 days. But, there is no question that we have heard people raise that in the list of different issues. It's not just Ontario, as you say, it's Manitoba. It's most every province of Canada that has taken a stance, and it's very much aligned with what Canadians themselves have done in their travel decisions, in terms of what they purchase, in terms of where products come from, and that's deeply being felt. That's what we heard much more of, is travel. Right. And the impacts that these types of reactions have. How do we get past that? I get the pleasure of working with the bourbon industry. I get the pleasure of working with the wine industry here, and what we say, look, there is a list of about 20 issues. This is the easiest to solve by far, right? Because it's binary. As soon as we get ourselves to a deal that addresses tariffs, as you've done for 20 other countries, the premier has said the booze goes back on the shelf. And so that one you can count on. It's been stated as much. And so focus on the harder ones and let's make some progress.
Just one last question, David Paterson. There was a little bit of confusion throughout the day about what's happening with the Gordie Howe Bridge exactly, though it does seem now it's pretty clear there's going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony at the end of the week. There are invitations going out to people. I know Premier Ford said he had heard conflicting stories. We know there's a ribbon cutting. I don't know if that means vehicle traffic is going to start going over it right away. What is your understanding of what exactly is happening with this very important cross-border trade corridor?
Yeah. No, I got to be on it. It came up, of course, with our meetings with 4 different auto associations as a concern because they very much want to see that open. We've just been out of the news loop for 2 days because we've been in back-to-back meetings. It's really an issue that's being managed between the federal government and the U.S. government. And so we're waiting to try and see where they land on that. We all want to see that bridge open because we have a lot of trucks that need to move goods back and forth, and we look forward to that. So your guess is as good as mine at the moment. We'll wait for the federal government to see how they're doing on that.
Okay. David Paterson, Ontario's representative in Washington, D.C. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you, David.